Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Friday to all of you. And welcome to the first ever The Mechanic by ACMotors webinar. A couple of quick facts about ACMotors. ACMotors is the motoring arm of the Ayala Group. And it started with the country's first Honda dealership back in 1991 and has since expanded to other brands such as Volkswagen, KTM, Kia, and Maxus over the past 6 years. Our topic for today is taking care of your car in this time of COVID-19. Of course, a very, very interesting topic for us now, no? And a relevant one at that, because of course, what is happening right now. No? And we have two panelists. Okay. First is Dr. Harold Trinidad, MD. Dr. Harold Trinidad is a medical doctor who specializes in occupational medicine and also in medical acupuncture. He works as a physician program manager for a multinational company and has been keeping up to date with relevant information regarding the COVID-19 pandemic since the news of it broke just earlier this year, no? And emerged from China. Having worked with medical experts and safety professionals, hopefully the knowledge he can share will be helpful for us and for you. And not just for car care, but for health promotion in general, no? During this pandemic as well. We also have Mr. Geronimo Campilan. Ron joined ACMotors, or shall I say rejoined ACMotors last 2018 as National Service Manager of Kia Philippines, overseeing network service operations and development. Ron has spent 19 years in different sectors of the automotive industry, which started after his academic years in Lincoln College of Technology at Norridge, Illinois. He has taken different roles and responsibilities in expanding major brand dealership after-sales operations, dealership development, automotive repair shop franchise operations here and abroad, automotive OE and aftermarket parts manufacturing, and distributor after-sales operations. And I am your host. My name is Jason De La Cruz. I am the sales training manager of Iconic Dealership, Inc. Prior to joining IDI, I was a motoring editor with C Magazine and Top Gear Philippines. So perhaps I may have met some of you, and I look forward to chatting with you in the near future, hopefully when in normal circumstances. I will be moderating the webinar today. Okay, just a few ground rules before we start. You will not be able to share your video or audio. You may communicate with us through the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. You may ask questions at any given time during the presentations, no? And we will make time after each presentation to address your questions. That being said, let me turn you over to Dr. Harold Trinidad. Doc?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I hope everybody is doing well during this time. And I hope the information that we can share with you this afternoon will be informative. Okay, let me start my screen here. Talking about anti-coronavirus car care, what you should know, what you should probably do, what you should probably not do for your car. Okay. So we'll break down our talk with knowing the enemy, what the virus is, what it's made of, are you really at risk in certain situations? What do you want to do in terms of car care and of course personal health, and why there are certain things that you probably don't want to do when it comes to treating your car right. All right, so this is our, this is one of the favorite pictures of our COVID-19, SARS-CoV-2 virus. If you break it down schematically, this is what you get. You know, viruses are really just packages of DNA or RNA, and the rest of it is just proteins and fat making a small capsule for that genetic material. If you will note that, what's important to note here is that you see all those spiky things that form the corona appearance of the virus. it's all embedded in a layer of lipids or fat. And unsexy as it might sound, that's why hand washing with soap and water, or in the case of your surfaces, detergents, is the most effective thing that you can do with regard to stopping this virus, okay? Because soap and detergents can break apart that membrane and thus prevent the virus from being intact when it enters your body. So the virus is SARS-CoV-2, the infection is COVID-19. What we're seeing so far is, for the most part, people get sick on average within 5 days of getting infected or exposed to the virus. Some people have gotten sick for as far away as two weeks or 14 days. And thus, that's why we have these kinds of lockdowns or quarantine periods. These tend to be very long because we are trying to get past that 14-day incubation period. There are mild forms of the disease of COVID-19. Majority of people will get that mild form. As it gets worse, you start to develop a pneumonia, and in its most severe form, it creates conditions which might require you to be admitted to the ICU, whether it's for lung problems or even heart problems, as we're seeing right now. Okay. So the thing that we have to remember right now, and we just got an extension of our ECQ until May 15, we are doing this, or public health officials and governments are doing this because we want to make sure that the hospitals are not overloaded. There are so many people who can get infected, and because even if the percentages of people who get severe disease are relatively low compared to other diseases, that segment tends to have so many numbers that our hospitals cannot cope. So this is really about making sure that the hospitals can cope while we are waiting for the development of effective treatments or an effective vaccine. All right, so our precautions for COVID-19, this is just one version of all the different kinds of precautions that you might note. Of course, what we are experiencing right now in terms of social distancing and physical distancing is a form of containment. And that's why people who are with the mild form of the disease are asked to quarantine at home, even from their relatives. Of course, now we have gotten new information or guidance from the WHO and from the US Center for Disease Control, or CDC, that we should all be wearing masks while out in public, because it could be that there are a lot of people out there who have the infection but don't know they have it because they are asymptomatic, and thus if everybody wears masks, that means we cover everybody who might also have the disease but not necessarily have symptoms. And I think that's why we're seeing this kind of spread, even if we have most infected individuals who are symptomatic in the hospitals. And of course, washing your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds remains to be the most effective form of disinfection. Use hand sanitizers or alcohol if you do not have access to clean water and soap for washing your hands. But of course, for our purposes for this afternoon, surface disinfection will come into play as part of our cleaning precautions. Okay, so again, where is it risky? For the elderly people, anybody who's above 60, they tend to have more severe forms of the disease. People with chronic illnesses tend to have, even if they're young. So some of the reports of people who get intubated or are admitted in the ICU despite having young age, they usually have chronic illnesses like some form of asthma. Diabetes is the most common. A smoking history predisposes you to severe forms of the disease, but that's probably because of the effect it has on your lungs. The spread of infection, because people aren't traveling anymore to China or other hotspots in the world, it's really coming now from areas of known local transmission. And that's why we are seeing that the ECQ has been modified to just certain provinces or regions within Luzon and even in Vismin. Okay. Of course, healthcare facilities where they have patients with COVID-19 are going to be hotspots of the infection. And any crowded place. Why? Again, a lot of people might be carrying the virus and they don't know it. And that's why this is what we call asymptomatic spread. This is what we hope to contain with the lockdowns and with generalized mask use, meaning everybody has to wear the mask when out. Why is that? A cough or a sneeze can create droplets that can spread the virus as far as 2 meters, and in special environments like inside hospitals, as far away as 4 meters. And these are validated through different studies. So it's important that we try to contain all of these droplets from spreading in the community. So as a reminder, you're wearing the mask because you're going to act like you have the virus, and we want everyone to think that way. It's not really for protecting you from the virus. It's more that assuring everybody or the general public that if everyone wears a mask, there's limited spread of these droplets in the air. So look at, we've studied how long the virus can survive on certain materials and objects. In aerosols, meaning very small droplets that can come out from the mouth, especially through coughing or sneezing, the virus remains viable, meaning alive for at least 3 hours. This can also survive on print paper and tissue paper for a good 3 hours and remain infectious. Copper surfaces tend to hold the virus for 4 hours. Cardboard, 24 hours. So wiping down your packages might be a good idea if you're coming from, or if you're receiving packages and you don't know how long they've been out. Wood and cloth fabrics, 48 hours. Glass and paper money can hold the virus for 4 days. So that's one thing to consider, especially for, well, with glass, for some of the surfaces of our vehicles, for paper money, all of that money exchange, of course, when you're going to the grocery, you need to consider that. And finally, 1 week survival time of the virus on stainless steel, plastics, and unfortunately, the outer surface of surgical masks. That is why it's actually very important that for wearing surgical masks, you dispose them once you get home. Or for cloth coverings, to make sure that you wash them or put them in a separate hamper immediately for washing when you get home, if you're using a cloth mask or a cloth facial covering. So when you look at your car, you're looking at maybe 4 days, maybe up to a week of surfaces where the virus can survive if the virus has made its way onto or into your car. So what do you want to do? Okay. First, of course, you want to consider all those times where you are actually at risk of picking up the virus, in your car or on your car. Internally, of course, that's when you have crowded conditions or passengers inside your vehicle. So it doesn't have to be just a full complement. You could have some, just even one passenger. Say you need to bring someone to the hospital, or you're picking someone up from work. You are putting the insides of your car at exposure risk. So when you're driving around with a passenger, our first principles for safety include, of course, minimizing the number of passengers inside the vehicle. And the suggestion for physical distancing within the small confines of a vehicle is to sit diagonally from the driver, meaning nobody on the front seat, ideally in the back row and away from the driver's side or behind the passenger side. Okay. This might be inconvenient during this time, but when you open your AC air intake, it's ideal to have it open to have fresh air coming in from the outside, even at intermittent periods. So you can switch it on and back off again, depending on your comfort level. But what's important here is that you have some air exchange from the inside to the outside of your car. If you prefer to keep the air intake of your AC closed, then try to open your windows even just a crack to allow air to move from the inside the car to the outside and vice versa. So you do get some air exchange, especially for longer drives. And of course, even well, with mask use now mandated for the general public, it's advisable for both driver and passenger to be wearing masks while inside the car, simply because social distancing cannot be maintained properly. Remember that the proper distance for social distancing is 6 feet or 2 meters. Exposure risk number 2 is, of course, when you're out and about and you're parked somewhere and there are people passing by, or you're parked in a place where crowds or people will tend to pass by. So you don't know what happens with people who might be breathing around or touching or sneezing or coughing alongside your vehicle. So of course, when you're going to start cleaning your car, you're going to treat this like our workers in the hospital or doctors would treat a patient. You'd be wearing a mask, you'd be wearing your gloves, ideally disposable gloves. But of course, if you have your rubber reusable gloves, just make sure that you wash them afterwards. When you clean the inside of your car, you're focusing on the high touch areas, the steering wheel, transmission sticks, the knobs, the controls, the touch screens, and the door handles and armrests. Okay, so what can you use to safely clean your car? A lot of car manufacturers have come out with guidance saying that occasional, meaning not frequent, okay? Not frequent, but occasional use of 70% alcohol will be safe for the inside of your car. For disinfection purposes, we are again looking at 70% alcohol content. Of course, mild soap and water will always be effective against the virus. And I'm sure we have a lot of car products here that are mild detergents that you can use for the inside surfaces and parts of your car. Okay. Ideally, you would want to put the cleaning solution on a microfiber cloth to avoid scratching the interiors. The microfiber cloth is also ideal in terms of holding the cleaning solution, whether it's soap and water or your alcohol, and allowing it to get onto the surfaces of your interiors. Although the recommendation for disinfection is that you would want this to be staying on the surface for at least 1 minute, the effect of the microfiber cloth on contact with your interior surfaces should be enough in terms of allowing the disinfection to proceed properly. And of course, afterward, you can use your preferred conditioning material once your alcohol or your soap and water has been dried out or wiped away. For the outside of your car, it's good old soap and water. Okay, so use the proper cloth that you want to use for your car surfaces. Please don't forget to clean the high touch areas, meaning the lids, the edge of your hood, the edge of your trunk, your door handles, of course, your side view mirrors, and ideally the inside of your trunk. Because if you're going to be transporting items in your car, it's better for you to put them inside your trunk than inside the car, inside your interior itself. And then of course that will require its own disinfecting or cleaning protocol or process, depending on what you prefer. Okay, and then afterwards, again, same like us doctors and nurses, Once we get home or once we're done with the procedure, we wash hands and we take a bath. Okay, there are just really a few things that you probably wouldn't want to do for disinfecting your car. Okay, there are other, of course, disinfecting materials that are effective with your coronavirus, and that would be hydrogen peroxide, H2O2, and your bleach solutions. However, you probably won't want to use this on your car paints or on your interiors because, of course, of staining issues. Other things you don't want to do, scrubbing too vigorously, especially with your interiors, because you might end up scratching them. For their interiors, you don't want to use too much soap or water because it might, especially with your seats, they might seep into your cushioning, and you will eventually get that moldy smell that happens when water dries out inside the upholstery. And of course, don't forget to wash your hands after any kind of cleaning procedure for your car. And when you get in from, of course, you're coming from your car and you're coming into your house, even if you felt that you were only out for a few minutes, please make sure that once you step inside your home, wash your hands, leave your outside footwear outside your home for disinfection later on, or keep a pair of footwear just for outside use. And if you've been out for long or have been out in areas where, again, there's exposure risk like crowded areas or healthcare facilities, you might want to consider an immediate change of clothes and or a quick shower before you interact with family members. Thank you very much. I hope that information has been very helpful for you. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them now.
Thanks, Doc. Very informative presentation. So as Doc Harry mentioned, if you have questions, kindly use or click the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen, and allow me to read some of the questions we have now. Okay, so our first question is, hi Doc, could the virus fly through the air and infect people on condo balconies 30 floors up?
Yeah, okay. For that one, very unlikely. Because of current air conditions and the weight of droplets, even if there's an aerosol, it's probably gonna fly away rather than up. For heavy droplets, that will tend to stay on the ground. So it's unlikely that you would get virus flying up 30 floors to infect condo balconies. Air coming down from upper floors might be something more to consider.
See, it's very interesting. Okay. Yeah, actually, for those who live in condos, that's actually a very, very interesting question. And now that you share that the air actually going down would be more of an issue to consider. So thanks for that, Doc. No? And another question, does 70% isopropyl alcohol really kills the virus? If it does, how long does it take for the alcohol to kill the virus?
Okay, yeah, 70% isopropyl alcohol or ethyl alcohol will really kill the virus. So that's been proven, that's effective. It's as effective as bleach or any of those high-end disinfectants that they use in the hospitals. It takes around 1 minute to kill most of the virus. That is why we do have issues with people who think that hand sanitizers are better than hand washing. Remember that for hand washing, it only takes 20 seconds to kill or to clean your hands. Ideally, for alcohol, you want to leave it on for longer than 30 seconds, at least, to kill the majority of the virus if it falls on any surface, including your hands.
Okay, thank you. And we have a question. Is the use of Clorox wipes okay and safe to use on interior of cars?
I'm guessing Clorox wipes would have the same sodium hypochlorite found in regular bleach. And I'll have to look that up unless somebody already knows. that would mean that for some surfaces, it might actually, yes, bleach the car, meaning cause some discoloration on certain surfaces. So that's something that you might want to hold off on. You might want to consider other types of wipes that contain alcohol, and there are many of that on the market anyway.
Okay, thank you. Question regarding my car. Will my gasoline go stale if I haven't driven my car out for more than a month due to the ECQ? How about my battery? Will it damage? Will it damage for prolonged unused? Perhaps this is something that our next speaker can shed more light on too, no? Mr. Ron Campilan, he will actually share a good number of tips for all of us. But Doc, if you want to share something or add something to this question, feel free to answer, please.
I'll have to pass on that one.
Okay, we'll leave it to Ron to address this. Okay, any more questions? So far that's it. Ako, Doc, I have a question or siguro bottom line. So after your presentation, I guess for those especially who mahilig maglinis ng sariling kotse nila, no? Bottom line, dapat disinfectant muna tapos yung protectant, tama po ba?
Yes, that's correct. Because you might move around the virus or encapsulate the virus in a surface that will prevent the disinfectant like alcohol from effectively working on the virus.
I see. Very good. Yeah, actually, we have some questions also coming from the chat box, Doc. No? So just allow me to read some of the questions. Any precaution when using surface sanitizers? Health-wise, thank you very much. Is what he's asking.
Yeah, I guess for surface sanitizers, for the most part, the ones that we allow or think that are most recommend as most effective, they tend to be very safe. You're only watching out for people who might be sensitive to alcohol or bleach or hydrogen peroxide. No? I have encountered, I'm starting to see cases of people who are developing allergies to too frequent hand washing and then interspersed with use of alcohol because it does dry out your hands. So I guess with similar to your car surfaces, that's why the conditioning materials will be important because you don't want to thoroughly dry out the surface of your interiors. No? So same thing with hands. After you wash your hands, it would be good to use a hand lotion also after.
Okay, yes, thank you, Doc. We have a question. Hi, Doc. Can car AC absorb coronavirus going inside the car?
That has not been proven because our car ACs, unlike building ACs, do not have a very strong, how do you call this, airflow compared with central air conditioning. So, and with where our cars usually travel, meaning it's on the highway, it's on the road, it's unlikely that the virus will be found floating in those kinds of conditions. More likely than not, as a car passes by, aerosols will tend to travel up and around or under your car rather than through your air conditioning.
We have another question. Can't find 70% alcohol. Would a lower percentage suffice?
Actually, yes. Technically speaking, 60% alcohol would be effective, although most manufacturers don't make 60% alcohol. I don't recommend using your high grade or cask strength or barrel proof alcohols for that.
And another question, is it already proven that the virus dies due to heat or high temperature?
Only when it's prolonged, meaning that we don't know yet how it will survive on surfaces like cars if exposed to the heat. With direct contact to hot air, we are using similar protocols in terms of disinfecting some materials. but we usually don't take chances with just heat. So we will always use maybe hydrogen peroxide or some other chemical disinfectant as well. So yes, it does die in heat. How effective it is, we don't take chances with it these days. Maybe in the future we will find out.
Okay. We have a question. Hi, Doc. Do I have to wear a face mask when I go biking around my subdivision, even if not a lot of people walk around or bike?
Again, yes. The recommendation for masks is not for your protection. You're trying to protect the public. You are trying to reassure the people around you that you are doing what it takes, meaning that you are assuming that you might be a carrier and are wearing a mask. So this is more of a societal thing. Everybody has to do that. Reassure everyone that we are doing our part in protecting the general public. So might think, yes, I know I don't have the virus, but you really never know at this point in time. So we wear the mask so that everybody else wears the mask, so that everybody knows we are doing our part to keep everyone safe.
Okay, thank you, Doc. And another question, how can we disinfect paper bills? Can we just spray alcohol?
As long as it holds up, yes.
Okay, and we have a question. If the car has not been used for 3 days, is it safe to assume that if there is virus contamination, it is dead already?
Okay, again, it depends on the surface. Dead, no. You're probably going to consider that there's a very tiny risk that some of the virus might still be there if it did pick up the virus if a surface picked up the virus. So for example, when you talk about the 7 days on steel, that only means that they could still detect the virus up to 7 days at an infectious level. It will drop after 7 days, meaning there's less virus, there's less risk of infection, but it's actually still there, but unlikely to cause infection. But again, I don't think anybody would want to take that gamble at this point in time.
Okay. And we have a question. Hi, Doc. When inside the car and you're just alone driving, is it still necessary to wear a mask?
Technically, no. You don't really have to. However, depending on local law enforcement, and this has happened to me, I was stopped after having showed my PRC ID, I was stopped by a policeman and was told to put on a mask because my local regulation here was to wear a mask at all times, and I would be fined 5,000 pesos if I was caught again.
So I guess, Doc, with that said, depending on the rules of specific LGUs, you recommend na kahit mag-isa lang kayo sa kotse, mag-mask na talaga.
Yeah, at least at the very least, be ready to put it on if you see a checkpoint about to come up.
Yeah, that's what I do as well. And we have a similar question also, no? So in case of virus inside the car, can this be removed by exposing the car under the sun for a day or even longer?
Again, the virus might live longer on some surfaces than most. I would not rely solely on the heat to kill the virus. It would still be better to at least spray and wipe it down with some alcohol, especially for your high-touch surfaces.
Okay, thank you for all your questions. At this point, we'd like to show a short video featuring the different models and brands of ACMotors while our next speaker, Sir Ron, prepares for his presentation. Thank you, Doc. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Hope you like that short video. Just to add on and as a reminder on cleaning your car's interior. If you're using chemicals, try it first on small and unnoticeable parts if it will react with the material finish. If it doesn't, then you may continue using it. Maybe wait for around 2 to 3 minutes just to be safe. As also mentioned by Doc Harry, lockdown is extended. So nasa season 3 na tayo of the ECQ, and we must continue to stay home and keep safe and healthy. With that, I'm going to be sharing with you tips to keep your cars as healthy as we are during this period. So tip number one. Tip number one is ensure your car has enough gas or diesel. 1/4 is enough, but the more fuel you have, the better. Why do we need fuel? We need this. This will help us when we need to go out for an emergency. It will also help us prevent moisture buildup and rust formation in your fuel tank if you have less empty space. But on most modern vehicles, fuel tanks are made of chemical resistant hard plastic. So I think no need to worry about rust. And last, you need fuel to do tip number two. And tip number two is maintaining car batteries charged. I think we had the question a while ago, but this is an explanation of why we need to maintain car batteries and how to maintain car charge, batteries charged. So this is the second most important tip. And just a simple trivia. Battery gets drained 0.85 to 1 volt every day you don't use your car. So to maintain a healthy 12 plus volts, just follow these simple steps. First is to open the engine hood. Open the hood. Okay. Make sure your garage is well ventilated. Start the engine and run it for 15 to 20 minutes and revving the engine to 1,000 to 2,000 RPM from time to time. Now, if you're parked inside the basement, you can drive around, go out the ramp and do it for 15 minutes. But for your safety, do not stay inside the car to avoid inhalation of deadly fumes if you cannot move the car. So while you do this, make sure to turn off all accessories and air conditioning, as it will also drain your battery. You can do this at least 3 times a week to get your batteries charging. And next tip, tip number 3, make sure your car is securely parked. We can talk a lot about this tip, but still best if we can park it indoors. But if you're going to park it outdoors, make sure to clean the exterior and interior before putting a cover. Make sure no food or crumbs is left inside, or else ants and cockroaches will be crawling in. You'll be surprised how they can get in. Another one is do not park under fruit-bearing trees to avoid bird droppings, tree sap stain, falling branches, and getting the engine cowl filled with dead leaves. It's very hard to remove dead leaves inside the engine cowl. Most of the tree sap and bird droppings also have a high acidity that damage paint finish. Also, if the road is on a level ground, might as well put wheel chucks. In Tagalog, kalso. Instead of using the handbrakes, because handbrakes tend to get stuck if you don't use them for a long time. And it's very hard to release the handbrake once they get stuck. Put shifting gears to park for automatic transmission, and for manual transmission, put it in first gear if your car is facing uphill, and reverse if your car is facing downhill. Now we proceed to tip number 4. Tip number 4 is how to properly park on a hilly or inclined road. This tip is a bit procedural and not just for during the lockdown, but should also be practiced every time you park in a hilly or inclined roads, like in Baguio or similar to that area. If you're parking uh, facing downhill, turn your steering wheel full turn towards the sidewalk. Now, if your car is facing uphill, turn your steering wheel full turn away from the sidewalk. If there's no gutter or curb on an uphill or downhill road, turn your steering wheel full towards the sidewalk. Now, all of this will prevent your car from rolling on its own towards the road, potentially smashing onto other vehicles, or worse, hitting a pedestrian. Next tip is tip number 5, how to avoid tire flat spots. Flat spots. This happens when we don't use the car for a very long time and damage occurs on a certain spot on the tires, damaging it prematurely. So to avoid this, make sure there's enough air in tires. Better if we have a tire pressure gauge and a portable air compressor. But if you don't have, and if you are allowed, and if it is safe, drive the vehicle out and park the opposite direction. If you can't go out, just move the car forward or backward, alternately, every time you do this. You can do this once or twice a week. And the last tip, tip number 6, how to protect your car's engine bay from rodents and rats. You will be surprised how they love to get inside the vehicle, through the exhaust system, through the engine compartments. Rats love chewing plastics, wires, belts, and rubber components inside the engine bay, which may cause vehicle malfunction and eventually cost you a lot of money. With that, here are some household rat repellents you may use. If you have ammonia cleaning agent, get a cup of it, mix it with 1 cup of white vinegar, put it inside a spray bottle, spray it on the ground around the vehicle, on all 4 tires, and underneath the vehicle. They don't like the smell of ammonia and mixed with the vinegar. The other option is mothballs or naphthalene balls. Put it inside an empty plastic water bottle. You can just get an empty water bottle, poke some holes on it, and put the naphthalene balls inside it. Place it underneath the vehicle on all 4 tires and inside the engine bay near the battery. And for extreme cases, you may purchase online rat poison, specifically the zinc phosphide in sachets. This is a very effective way of terminating rodents and rats. But be very cautious on how to use all of the above repellents, since they are all very poisonous to humans and pets. Read product labels and proper use, and don't forget to put them all aside in a safe place before driving off. Again, do the mentioned tips if only safe to do them. Thank you, and stay safe and healthy.
Okay, thank you, Ron. So for those who have questions, same, no? Just click the Q&A icon at the bottom. And as mentioned earlier, question regarding the battery. So hopefully we address this issue, no? And let me go through some of the questions we have now. Okay, so far wala pang pumapasok, but feel free to to just type away and ask your questions. And I also like to share, with what Ron has shared. These are very, very simple yet very, very handy tips, no? Lalo na ngayon na hindi natin ginagamit masyado yung kotse. So apart from that, Ron, anything else you'd like to share?
Yeah.
No? Like now,
a while ago, I saw a question about the fuel getting stale
Yes.
Yeah. Depending on when was the last time you got the fuel filled in. On most fuel depending on the octane rating, quality, the brand, uh, average is 30 days. So after 30 days, it might get stale already. But you can get it refreshed once you get it, fill it up with new fresh fuel. Twice the amount if you can.
So, like say your car is filled up, no, or at least 3/4 a tank. So, how long will that last, or how long should you actually consume it so that it doesn't become stale? Like say, for example, full tank or at least 3/4. Tapos how how quick should you use it so that or how quick should you consume it so that it doesn't have any chances of going stale?
During the ECQ, of course, we cannot drive the vehicle, but we can start the engine. So by following all those tips, running the engine, we can consume some of the fuel. So once the ECQ is lifted, we can go to a gasoline station and fill it up with fresh fuel with a bit higher octane.
Okay.
But
so I guess
for more safety, we can go to a service shop and have it drained and replace it with new fuel.
Okay. Thank you for that. And we have a question. I've heard that peppers or paminta are good rodent and feline repellents. What's your take on this? Thank you.
We've tried it before. Personally, I tried it before. They might sneeze, but they won't go away.
I see. Especially mga rodents talaga, no? We have another question. Can we get a copy of the car care tips? Yes, you may. You may, of course. Okay, and another question. I loaded Blaze full tank before the ECQ. I still have 53 liters on my car.
When was the last time? Before the ECQ?
Yes, she mentions that, filled up before the ECQ.
Well, I cannot exactly say if it is stale already, but if you drive, if you do the tips that we mentioned, you will feel, the fuel is stale, you will feel it while idling. There's a bit rough of shaking on the engine if the fuel is stale.
If in case it's the same for gasoline or petrol with diesel, no? I mean, it's the same. It's the same. How shall I say this? You treat it the same.
Yes, yes. The effects are also the same.
Yes. Okay. We have a question. What proportion of alcohol and water to use to wipe and disinfect the car indoor surface?
As mentioned, you can try applying the 70% alcohol on small and unexposed areas before you apply it on the whole area. Sometimes on the trims, the dashboards, the materials, the paint finish on the dashboard might react on the 70% alcohol. So might as well try it first on smaller areas before using it on the whole interior of the vehicle. I've tried using pure alcohol without mixing it with water. You can use it on solid plastic materials that are not coated with colors or platings.
Okay. We have another question. My Isuzu D-Max was parked since March 12. No way for me to start it during ECQ as it's parked away from my house. How do I manage it after ECQ ends on May 15?
If since March 12.
Yes.
March 12. If it starts, good. If it doesn't start, you may call your nearest Isuzu dealer so they can arrange a mobile service and have your vehicle start. Or if you have someone near you or a friend that has a jumper cable, you can use a jumper cable, but use a vehicle that has a larger battery. Because if you use a vehicle with smaller batteries, it will take a longer time for your D-Max to start because the smaller battery has to charge your D-Max's battery before you can start it.
I see. Okay. We have a question. Can we use the commercial wipes and spray with alcohol?
Commercial wipes, I mean the wet wipes readily available at stores?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Again, try it on small areas before you spray it all over the interior.
Okay. Another question. Hi all, can you still remove an alcohol stain on your dashboard? Tried using BS1, but it does, but it
Jason.
only hides it for a while. Sorry, let me read that again. Hi all, can you still remove an alcohol stain on your dashboard? Tried using BS1, but it only hides it for a while.
I mean, depending on the brand of the vehicle, some you can remove the stain of alcohol using a conditioner, but 90% you cannot remove it. Once it gets damaged, it's damaged.
I suppose, ano, no? Siguro yung tinatanong dito, yung namumuti yung surfaces.
Yeah, yes.
Dahil dun alcohol. Okay. And we have another question. My car is parked inside my garage and noticed lizard poop. Will it damage my paint if I don't get to wash my car? Sorry, let me read that again.
Yeah.
Can you hear me, Ron?
Yep.
Okay. My car is parked inside my garage and noticed lizard poop or droppings. Will it damage my paint if I don't get to wash my car?
Depending on how you maintain your car, if you wax it before, or if you don't put wax before, it will affect the efficacy of the lizard droppings on the paint. If you don't have wax, it might damage the paint, but you can use a readily available material from most of the stores, like a rubbing compound or wax. You can just use a rubbing compound and wax it after.
Okay. We have another question. Can we remove the negative side of the battery to keep it from draining?
Even if you remove the negative side of the battery, it will still drain a little bit. It will drain some voltage, around 0.2 volts every day. Plus, it will, if the vehicle is computerized or controlled by an ECQ, it will erase the how do you call this? If the computer already knows how you drive, the manner of your driving, it will might get back to a zero in terms of the memory it got from how you drive it.
Okay. Another question. I had a full tank a few days after 15 March lockdown. Now I only have about 3
bars.
Yes, I would think it's 3 bars. Okay.
I think 3 bars is around 1/4 or 3/8. So that's I think that's more than enough. If you don't go out, if you just use that fuel to run the engine, like what we mentioned in the car care tips, it will suffice.
Okay. We have a few more questions, no? A follow-up question. I had full tank a few days after 15 March ECQ. Now I only have 3/4. Is it advisable to just consume it until almost empty before refueling?
I think it's better to have fuel and enough fuel before May 15. So might as well save your fuel now, because we still are not that certain if May 15 will be lifted already. So better to have fuel right now, if you can go out to have it filled up.
Okay, and we have a next question. Can I use multi-purpose cleaner on bird droppings and bird saliva on a car surface?
There are several types of multi-purpose cleaners that used in your household that might contain harsh chemicals. Better if you can just use a car shampoo, concentrated car shampoo, and a microfiber, and let it soak for a while before rinsing it off with water and washing it again. If the stain sticks to the engine, the paint material or the surface of the paint, you can again use rubbing compounds and wax.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for your questions. No? And thank you for being part of our very first webinar.